They're watching you right now, not with admiration, not with curiosity, with something far more dangerous, confusion laced with terror. Because you've become the equation they can't solve, the variable that broke their entire system of understanding, you're standing in a space that shouldn't exist, occupying a frequency that makes their internal compasses spin wildly, needles trembling, pointing nowhere and everywhere at once. Here's what's happening in their heads while you're just existing: a civil war. Two versions of you are fighting for dominance in their perception, and neither one is winning. Neither one can win. You're their potential salvation and their guaranteed destruction, wearing the same face, speaking the same words, moving through the same rooms. And that impossibility is eating them alive from the inside out. They look at you and see rescue. Then they blink and see ruin, back and forth. Savior, nightmare, savior, nightmare. The cognitive dissonance is creating fractures in their reality. You become a walking paradox that their minds cannot file away, cannot categorize, cannot neutralize with comfortable labels. And in a world where everyone desperately needs to put everyone else in boxes, you're the shape that doesn't fit anywhere. This isn't arrogance. This is observation of a phenomenon you didn't ask for, but now command with absolute authority. You didn't choose this position. It chose you when you survived what should have destroyed you. When you transmuted pain into power instead of poison. When you rebuilt yourself, not as you were, but as something they'd never seen before. Something that carries both the capacity to heal and the capacity to harm with equal, terrifying precision. The ambitious ones, the hungry ones, the ones building empires in the dark. You know who you are. You understand this better than most. You felt the shift in rooms when you enter. The way conversations pause for a microsecond too long. The way eyes track you with an intensity that's neither hostile nor friendly, but something far more unsettling. Assessment. Constant, relentless assessment. Are you asset or threat? Ally or enemy? Opportunity or annihilation? The answer is yes to all of it, simultaneously. And that's what's breaking them, because human beings are pattern recognition machines desperate for predictability. We need to know if the shadow in the forest is predator or protector. We need binary choices, safe or dangerous, friend or foe. But you've evolved past binary. You exist in quantum superposition, both states at once until observation collapses the wave function. And even then, they're not sure what they're seeing. You're the medication that cures and the poison that kills, and the dosage is entirely dependent on how they approach you. You're the fire that warms and the fire that incinerates. You're the knife that performs surgery and the knife that executes. Same instrument, different outcomes. Their outcomes depend entirely on their intentions, and somewhere deep in their lizard brains, they know this. So they're terrified, not of what you'll do, of what you represent. You represent the mirror they can't avoid. You reflect back everything they are, everything they pretend to be, and everything they're terrified of becoming. When they look at you, they see their own potential divinity and their own potential destruction. And they can't tell which one is winning in themselves either. You've become the test. They're not sure they can pass. The ones who approach you with genuine intention, with authenticity, with real value to offer. They find something in you that elevates them. You become the catalyst for their transformation. The mentor who sees potential they've buried. The partner who amplifies their vision. The force that opens doors they didn't know existed. For them, you're the best thing that ever happened, the answered prayer, the miracle they stopped believing in. But the others, the ones who come with hidden agendas and plastic smiles and knives behind backs, the ones who see you as a stepping stone or a resource to drain or a threat to eliminate, the ones who approach with manipulation disguised as admiration, with exploitation dressed up as collaboration. For them, you become their worst nightmare wearing a pleasant expression. And here's the beautiful, terrible truth. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to expose them or attack them or even acknowledge their schemes. Your mere existence in their proximity is enough. Your frequency disrupts their frequency. Your authenticity reveals their fakery by contrast. Your peace highlights their chaos. Your growth magnifies their stagnation. You're not trying to destroy them, but your presence initiates their self-destruction automatically. It's like you're a walking immune system for reality itself. Authentic cells are nourished. Cancer cells are identified and eliminated, not through violence, through exposure, through the simple, undeniable fact of what you are. This is why they can't sleep properly anymore, why your name comes up in their thoughts at 3 in the morning, why they obsess over your movements, your decisions, your success, why they analyze your words for hidden meanings and read intention into your silence, why they oscillate between wanting you close and needing you gone. You've become the central mystery of their existence, and they're trying to solve you like you're a puzzle when you're actually a force of nature. You don't get solved. You get experienced, you get respected, or you get survived. Those are the only options. The ambitious entrepreneur reading this, you've felt this acutely. You've watched competitors study your methods like you're a text to decode. You've seen potential partners circle you with the wariness of animals approaching something they can't identify. You've noticed how some people in rooms full of sharks suddenly position themselves near you like you're a shield. Others avoid you like you're a bomb with an unknown timer. Both instincts are correct. Because you are protection and you are danger, and which one manifests depends entirely on who's asking the question. You didn't set out to be this. You set out to survive, to build, to win on your terms after a world tried to define your terms for you. You set out to create something real in a landscape of facades, and somewhere in that journey, you became something that doesn't fit the standard models. You became the exception that proves the rule is broken. Now watch what this does to them. Watch the psychological unraveling in slow motion. First comes the approach, cautious, calculated. They're testing waters, sending feelers, making small overtures. They're trying to determine which version of you they're dealing with. Are you the savior who will partner with them, elevate them, give them access to whatever power they sense you possess? They're hoping, yes, they're performing for you. Presenting their best angles, showing you what they think you want to see, and you see right through it. Not because you're cynical, because you've been rebuilt with new vision. The kind of vision that comes from being burned, betrayed, broken down, and reconstructed. You see beneath surfaces now. You read subtext like primary text. You hear the words beneath the words. You feel the agenda beneath the smile. So you remain neutral, pleasant but distant, cordial but uncommitted. You give nothing away. You reveal no weak points because you've armored the ones you had and built new strengths in their place. This is when their confusion begins. They expected an outcome. They presented stimulus and expected predictable response, but you've given them nothing to work with, no leverage, no clear indication of friend or foe. Just this strange, unsettling equilibrium that feels like standing in the eye of a hurricane, calm, but with the constant awareness of massive force just beyond the visible edge. Second phase, they intensify. They offer more, promise more, push harder. Or they probe for weaknesses, test boundaries, try to find the crack in your armor. Some do both simultaneously, offering partnership while positioning knives, just in case, just to cover all bases. Just to maintain control of a situation they're slowly realizing they've never controlled. And you remain exactly as you were, consistent, impenetrable, neither cruel nor kind, just present, just powerful in a way that doesn't announce itself with volume, but with absolute, unshakable certainty. This is when the fear really starts, because inconsistency they could handle, aggression they could handle, but this calm, centered power that doesn't need to prove itself, this is alien technology. This is operating system they don't have. This is code they can't crack. They start making mistakes, small ones first, a slip in the facade, a moment of authentic frustration breaking through the performance, a tactical error born of confusion. And you notice, you always notice, but you say nothing. You just file the information away in that upgraded processing system you're running now. Third phase, the deterioration. This is where it gets beautiful in the way Greek tragedies are beautiful. This is where their inability to define you starts defining them. They become obsessed. Your name appears in their conversations more than it should. They check your progress more than is healthy. They compare their trajectory to yours and find themselves wanting in ways they can't articulate. For the ones who approached with genuine intent, this isn't happening. They've already integrated you into their world as positive force. They're growing alongside you, benefiting from the proximity, understanding instinctively that you're safe harbor for the authentic. But the others, the pretenders, the users, the ones who wanted to extract without offering real value, they're spiraling. And the truly exquisite part? You haven't attacked them. You haven't exposed them. You haven't done anything except exist and focus on your own ascension. But your ascension is their descent. Not because you're pulling them down, because your rise reveals exactly how far they haven't risen. Your clarity reveals their confusion. Your purpose reveals their aimlessness. Your integrity reveals their compromise. You've become the mirror they can't avoid, and what they see is destroying them more efficiently than any enemy ever could. They start to malfunction. They make public mistakes. They contradict themselves. They alienate allies trying to warn others about you. But their warnings sound unhinged because they can't articulate what the actual threat is. They're dangerous sounds paranoid when you haven't actually done anything dangerous. Don't trust them falls flat when you haven't broken trust. They're manipulative, seems like projection when you've been completely transparent. So others start to see them clearly for the first time. The mask slips. The performance falters. And suddenly, they're exposed by their own actions, undone by their own paranoia, destroyed by their own inadequacy, that your presence simply highlighted. You didn't swing the sword. You were the light that showed where the sword needed to fall. Reality did the execution. You were just the catalyst for truth. This is happening to someone thinking about you right now. Multiple someones. They're in their spaces, offices, cars, late-night isolation, and you're haunting them. Not because you're trying to, because they can't categorize you, and that uncertainty is corrosive to the kind of control they need to feel safe. They tell themselves stories. They're lucky. No, you're prepared. They're fake. No, you're authentic in ways they've forgotten how to be. They're going to fail. No, you're already succeeding in dimensions they can't perceive. They're not that special. Then why can't they stop thinking about you? The stories don't hold. The rationalizations crack. And underneath is the terrifying truth. You're operating at a frequency they can't reach, and watching you succeed while they plateau is more painful than any direct attack could ever be. You're the living proof that their limitations are chosen, not inherent, that their excuses are just excuses, that their compromises were never necessary, that the easy path they chose while you chose the hard path has led them to comfort without meaning while you've arrived at power with purpose. And they're just now realizing the price of that choice. Too late. Always too late. The savior-nightmare dichotomy is really about them, not you. It's about whether they have the courage to evolve or the cowardice to stagnate. You're the mirror showing them which one they've chosen. For those who chose evolution, you're the best thing in their world. For those who chose stagnation, you're their worst nightmare because you're proof it didn't have to be that way. Let's go deeper into what this means for you. For the ambitious entrepreneur, the builder, the one playing for real stakes in a world of pretenders. You need to understand the weapon you've become, not through aggression, but through authenticity. You need to know how to wield this power not by attacking, but by simply being exactly what you are with zero apology. First, understand that your neutrality is more threatening than hostility. Hostility can be defended against, planned for, countered. But neutrality? Neutrality toward those who expected to matter to you? That's devastation. That's irrelevance. And for the ego-driven, for the status-obsessed, for the ones who measure their worth by who acknowledges them. Your indifference is assassination. You're not ignoring them from weakness. You're not paying attention because they haven't earned attention. Your focus is currency, and they're not valuable enough to purchase it. They sense this. It makes them frantic. They escalate. They perform harder. They make bigger claims, louder statements, more desperate bids for your recognition. And you remain exactly as you were, building, growing, ascending, your trajectory unchanged by their desperation. This is active power through passive presence. This is winning by not playing their game. This is dominance through disinterest. Second, recognize that your transformation makes them question their own choices. You were broken once. They might know this. They might have seen you at your lowest. But now you're here, rebuilt, stronger than before, carrying wisdom that only comes from surviving what should have destroyed you. They chose different paths when faced with difficulty. They chose comfort over growth. They chose shortcuts over mastery. They chose preservation over transformation. And watching you succeed after choosing the harder path makes every one of their compromises feel like failures, which they were. You're not rubbing this in their faces. You're just living proof that the hard way was the right way. And for those who lack the courage to walk hard roads, your existence is perpetual judgment. Third, understand that your unpredictability is a strategic advantage they can't counter. They build strategies based on predicted responses. But you've evolved past pattern. You've broken out of behavior loops. You've reprogrammed yourself at foundational level. So when they push, you might engage or you might ignore, and they can't tell which until it happens. When they offer, you might accept or decline, and their analysis can't predict it. When they attack, you might defend or you might simply walk away and let their energy dissipate into void. This unpredictability isn't chaos, it's freedom. You're no longer running programs someone else wrote. You're improvising from principles, not following scripts. And script followers can't compete with principle-driven improvisation. They're playing checkers with memorized moves. You're playing jazz. They're losing their minds because they can't get ahead of you, can't plan for you, can't neutralize you, can't even figure out if they should be trying to befriend you or destroy you. And while they're paralyzed in analysis, you're already 3 moves ahead, playing a completely different game on a board they didn't know existed. Fourth, accept that your power comes from having nothing left to lose in the ways they're terrified of losing things. They're afraid of judgment, of failure, of exposure, of loss of status or wealth or reputation. These fears control them. These fears make them predictable. These fears make them weak. But you already lost everything once. You've already been judged and failed and exposed and reduced to nothing. And you survived. More than survived. You rebuilt into something better. So what can they threaten you with? What leverage do they have over someone who's already walked through the fire and come out forged steel? None. They have no leverage, no pressure point, no weakness to exploit. You're not reckless, you're calculated. But you're calculated without fear, and that makes you unstoppable in ways they can't comprehend. They're playing not to lose. You're playing to win with full acceptance that loss is just another form of learning. This fundamental difference in orientation makes you alien to them, makes you threatening, makes you impossible to control. Fifth, realize that your presence elevates standards in every room you enter, not through judgment or superiority, through simple existence. You carry a quality of being that comes from having done the work, the real work, the internal work, the transformation work that most people talk about but never actually do. So when you're in spaces, in conversations, in deals, in partnerships, your baseline is higher. Your standards are higher. Your bullshit tolerance is lower. Your clarity is sharper. And everyone else in proximity feels it. The ones operating at similar frequency feel inspired, energized, called upward. The ones operating below feel exposed, inadequate, threatened. You're not trying to make anyone feel this way. You're just being exactly what years of intentional growth have made you. But your authentic standard reveals everyone else's compromised standard by contrast. This is why mediocre people fear you, why pretenders avoid you, why scammers sense you and steer clear. You're the test they know they'll fail. You're the light that shows the cracks in their facades. You're the standard that reveals their substandard. Sixth, understand that your loyalty is absolute when earned and non-existent when not. There's no middle ground anymore. You don't do casual alliances or surface relationships or transactional partnerships dressed up as friendship. You've learned the cost of misplaced trust. You've learned that your energy is sacred and shouldn't be wasted on the unworthy. So you're either all in or all out, completely committed or completely absent. This clarity is terrifying to those who want to keep options open, who want to use you without committing to you, who want access without offering value. They can't manipulate someone who's either fully with them or not there at all. They can't play games with someone who refuses to be played. They can't extract value from someone who's already calculated their worth and found it wanting. Your loyalty is reward and privilege, not automatic gift. They have to earn it, and most of them can't. Most of them aren't willing to do what earning it requires. Being real, being valuable, being someone who adds rather than extracts. So they're in constant anxiety about where they stand with you. Are they in or out, trusted or suspect, safe or threatened? And you give them no easy answers because you're still assessing, still watching, still gathering data about who they really are when the performance drops. This assessment phase never truly ends. You're always watching, always learning, always ready to recategorize based on revealed truth. And this permanent state of evaluation, this refusal to ever become complacent about who's allowed in your circle, this is what keeps them in perpetual uncertainty. They want to relax around you. They want to stop performing, but they can't, because they know at instinctive level that the moment they drop their guard, the moment they reveal who they really are, you'll see them clearly and respond accordingly. And if who they really are is unworthy, your response will be distance, not anger, not retaliation, just absence, just removal of access, just exclusion from the benefits of proximity to someone operating at your level. For the valuable ones, this isn't a problem. They're authentic already. They have nothing to hide, nothing to perform. They can relax because they know their value is real and your assessment will reflect truth. They are comfortable in your presence because they're comfortable in themselves. But the others, the performers, the ones with agendas, they can never relax. They're in permanent performance mode, desperate to maintain illusion, terrified of the moment the mask slips and you see beneath. This exhausts them. This wears them down. This makes them make mistakes that expose them faster than any investigation could. You're not interrogating them, you're just being present and paying attention. But your presence is investigative. Your attention is forensic. Your observation is comprehensive. And lies can't survive in sustained proximity to someone who sees clearly. So they confess through their stress. They expose themselves through their anxiety. They reveal truth through the energy of hiding it, and you simply take notes and adjust strategy accordingly. Seventh, embrace that you become the chaos agent in a system that craves order. The ambitious ones understand this. The entrepreneurs, the builders. You're disrupting industries, patterns, power structures just by playing differently than everyone else expects. You don't follow the path that's laid out. You don't respect artificial hierarchies. You don't acknowledge gatekeepers who haven't earned the gates they're keeping. You don't play political games or pay lip service to irrelevant authority. This makes you dangerous to anyone whose power depends on compliance, whose influence requires obedience, whose status relies on others accepting the game as fixed. But you don't accept the fix. You see the game is rigged, and you either change the rules or build an entirely new game that makes the old one irrelevant. And this ability to simply opt out of systems that don't serve you, to refuse participation in games you can't win on your terms, to walk away from opportunities that require compromise of core self. This is revolution. They can't control you because you don't need what they're offering. They can't threaten you because you're not afraid of the consequences they're threatening. They can't bribe you because your price isn't money or status or access. Your price is alignment with purpose, and most of them don't even understand what that means. So they oscillate between wanting to recruit you and wanting to destroy you, between offering you partnership and plotting your downfall, between seeing you as asset and seeing you as threat. And you, understanding this, stay exactly where you are, in your power, in your purpose, in your completely unbothered advancement toward goals they probably don't even understand. This is the nightmare part. Not that you're attacking them, that you're advancing despite them, that their presence or absence in your life makes zero difference to your trajectory. That you've achieved escape velocity from the gravity of their influence. They're no longer relevant variables in your equation. They're background noise while you're conducting symphonies. They're footnotes while you're writing chapters. They're spectators while you're competing and being relegated to irrelevance by someone they thought they could control, influence, or stop. This is psychological annihilation. This is ego death. This is the ultimate defeat, and they can't even fight it because there's nothing to fight. You're not opposing them, you're just not noticing them. Eighth, recognize that your peace is their psychological warfare. They expect you to be as chaotic as they are, as anxious, as desperate, as compromised. But you're not. You found center. You found calm. You found a frequency that doesn't spike and crash with external circumstances. This equilibrium that you've achieved through brutal internal work, through facing every demon and integrating every shadow, through rebuilding your foundation on unshakable principle. This peace is more threatening to them than any aggression, because peace means you're not reactive, not manipulable, not vulnerable to the chaos they might throw at you to knock you off balance. You've already weathered worse than they can imagine. You've already survived storms that would have destroyed them. So their little weather patterns don't move you. You're not suppressing emotion. You're not pretending calm while screaming internally. You've actually achieved integration, actual balance, actual peace that comes from having done the work and knowing who you are and what you're capable of and what you're not willing to compromise. This is the savior part for those worthy of it. Your peace shows them peace is possible. Your balance shows them balance is achievable. Your center shows them that amid all chaos there can be stillness. And for those ready to do the work, you become the lighthouse showing that shore exists even when they're drowning in storms. But for those who've chosen chaos, who've built identities around drama, who've mistaken activity for progress and noise for impact, your peace is evidence of their failure. Your calm highlights their turbulence. Your clarity contrasts with their confusion. So they try to disrupt it. They poke. They prod. They create situations designed to make you react, to pull you into their frequency, to prove that you're not really at peace, just pretending. And when you don't react, when you remain exactly as you are, when their provocations slide off your equilibrium like water off stone, that's when they truly start to break. Because they've invested energy in disrupting you and gotten zero return. They've spent time and effort and attention trying to knock you off center, and you haven't moved. And the realization that they can't affect you, can't reach you, can't disturb your peace, even when they're specifically trying to. This is defeat at existential level. Ninth, understand that your growth is aggressive to their stagnation. You're not static, you're not maintaining, you're constantly evolving, learning, upgrading, integrating new capabilities. Your perpetual motion machine of intentional development. They're watching you 3 months ago compared to you now and seeing transformation that makes their years of maintenance look like regression. They're watching you learn new skills, enter new markets, build new partnerships, achieve new levels while they're still trying to hold on to what they achieved years ago. Your growth isn't arrogant, it's necessary. It's what happens when you're actually committed to being the best version of yourself, rather than committed to appearing to be something you're not. But your evolution is their indictment. Every level you reach asks silent question. Why haven't they reached this level? Every new capability you develop highlights capabilities they've failed to develop. Every expansion of your influence shows contraction of theirs by comparison. You're not competing with them, you're competing with yourself. But because they're competing with everyone, including you, your self-focused growth looks like direct attack on their status. Your refusal to play their competitive games looks like next-level strategy they can't counter. So they're frustrated. They're using standard competitive tactics on someone who's not competing in their category. They're using business warfare strategies on someone who's playing an entirely different game. They're using fear and manipulation on someone who's evolved past being controlled by either. It's like they showed up with swords to fight someone who's already invented guns. The whole category of their threat is obsolete, and they don't even understand why they can't touch you. 10th, accept that you're going to be misunderstood by default and at peace with that misunderstanding. Most people aren't going to get you. Most people aren't going to understand your choices, your strategies, your vision. Most people are going to project their limitations onto you and wonder why you're doing things that don't make sense in their worldview. And you're completely okay with this. You're not trying to be understood by everyone. You're trying to be effective in your purpose. Understanding from the right people will come. Misunderstanding from the wrong people is actually protective. It keeps them at distance. So you don't explain yourself unnecessarily. You don't justify your decisions to those who lack context to evaluate them properly. You don't defend your vision to those who don't have the sight to see it. This selective communication, this refusal to make yourself smaller or clearer for those who aren't ready to receive you at full frequency, this is power move they can't counter. Because their tactic is usually to make you explain, justify, defend, until you're exhausted and compromised. But you won't play. You state your position once, clearly, and then proceed regardless of their understanding or approval. And this certainty, this refusal to seek validation or permission, this is what makes you unstoppable. They need consensus. They need approval. They need validation from others to feel secure in their choices. But you move past that developmental stage. You validate yourself through alignment with purpose and adherence to principle. External approval is nice but unnecessary. External disapproval is noted but irrelevant. This internal locus of evaluation makes you uncontrollable. They can't manipulate you with judgment because you don't outsource your self-worth to their opinions. They can't control you with approval or disapproval because you've built internal compass that points true, regardless of external magnetic interference. So here's where we arrive. You standing in your absolute power, rebuilt from ashes, upgraded through pain, operating at frequency that makes you either salvation or nightmare depending entirely on who's approaching and what they're bringing. You understand now what you've become. Not through arrogance, through observation, through watching the effect your presence has on different categories of people, through noticing patterns in how authentic people gravitate toward you while pretenders keep distance or approach with extreme caution. You're not trying to be intimidating. You're just no longer trying to be safe for those who should be uncomfortable. You're not trying to be threatening. You're just no longer hiding your power to make weak people feel strong. You're not trying to be confusing. You're just operating at a level of complexity that simple thinking can't process. And this complexity, this refusal to be reduced to simple categories, this existence in multiple states simultaneously, this is your power and their nightmare. For the entrepreneur reading this deep into the script, you know this truth intimately. You've built something real while others were building facades. You've created actual value while others were creating appearances. You've done the work while others were doing the performance. And now you're experiencing the results. The ones who want to partner with real value see you as opportunity of lifetime. The ones who wanted to exploit perceived weakness see you as threat to eliminate. Both views are partially correct. Both views are inadequate to capture what you actually are. You're the phoenix that burned and rebuilt with fireproof feathers. You're the sword that was shattered and reforged as something sharper. You're the code that was corrupted and rewrote itself as more sophisticated program. You're the business that failed and rose as something that understands failure and therefore can't be destroyed by it. This makes you unkillable in the ways they know how to kill. This makes you unbreakable in the places they know how to apply pressure. This makes you unmanipulable through the leverage points they know how to exploit. You're not invulnerable. You're just vulnerable in places they can't reach and protected in places they thought were exposed. You've moved your weak points to hidden locations and armored what used to be soft targets. You become strategic about your own architecture. And watching someone who's this intentionally developed, this carefully constructed, this precisely calibrated to their own purpose. It's beautiful to allies and terrifying to enemies. It's inspiring to students and threatening to competitors. It's clarifying to the genuine and confusing to the manipulators. You've become the test everyone has to pass to access you. And most people fail, not because you're making it hard, because they're not actually ready for proximity to someone operating at your level. They're not prepared for the honesty you require. They're not capable of the value exchange you expect. They're not willing to do the work that earning your trust requires. So they stay in this liminal space of wondering, analyzing, obsessing about whether you're friend or foe, whether they should pursue you or avoid you, whether you're opportunity or threat. And you've stopped caring about their categorization. You've stopped managing their perception. You've stopped trying to make them comfortable with your complexity. You're just being exactly what you are and letting reality sort out who can handle it and who can't. This is ultimate power, not power over others, power over self, that's so complete that others' reactions become irrelevant data points rather than controlling factors. You're free in ways they're still imprisoned, free from need for their approval, free from fear of their judgment, free from concern about their schemes, free from attachment to their understanding. And this freedom, this absolute liberation from the chains they're still wearing, this is what makes you their savior or their nightmare, depending entirely on whether they're ready to be free themselves. For those ready to break their own chains, you're the evidence that it's possible, the proof that transformation is real, the demonstration that you can burn down who you were and build who you're meant to be from the ashes. For them, you're hope incarnate, your possibility made flesh. You're the future they're trying to reach. But for those who've made peace with their chains, who've built identity around their limitations, who've turned their prison into home and their cage into comfort, you're the nightmare reminder that they're not actually trapped, that they're choosing stagnation, that they could transform if they were willing to endure what transformation requires. And this reminder, this walking evidence that their excuses are just excuses, this is unbearable. This is ego death. This is the end of every story they've told themselves about why they can't, why it's impossible, why they're stuck. So they try to diminish you, try to find flaws, try to predict your failure, try to convince themselves and others that you're not actually that special, that significant, that transformed. But the evidence keeps contradicting their narrative. You keep succeeding, keep growing, keep evolving, keep proving that the path they said was impossible is not only possible but navigable, and you're navigating it with increasing skill and speed. This is the final breaking point. When their predictions of your failure fail, when their analysis of your weakness proves wrong, when their certainty that you'll crash meets the reality that you're ascending, this is when they have to face truth. They were wrong about you, which means they might be wrong about themselves, which means everything they've accepted as limitation might actually be choice. And that realization either transforms them or destroys them. Either they look at you and think, if they can do it, maybe I can, and begin their own transformation. Or they look at you and think, if they can do it, then I have no excuse, and spiral into deeper dysfunction. You're not choosing which one happens. Their character is choosing. Their courage or cowardice is deciding. Their capacity for honesty or preference for delusion is determining outcome. You're just being the catalyst, the mirror, the test, the initiation, the evidence, the possibility. And whether they pass or fail, whether they transform or deteriorate, whether they become ally or enemy, whether they see you as savior or nightmare, none of this changes what you are or where you're going. You're already on path that leads beyond their ability to follow or prevent. You're already operating at level where their participation is optional. You're already building future where their presence or absence makes no essential difference. This is what it means to have fully arrived. Not at destination. You understand there's no final destination, only continuous expansion, but arrived at level of self-possession and purpose. Alignment where external validation or interference can't redirect your trajectory. You're launched. You're in flight. You're beyond gravity of their influence, and whether they're cheering or cursing from ground level doesn't change your altitude or direction. This is freedom. This is power. This is what you became when you refused to stay destroyed. This is what emerged when you chose transformation over bitterness. This is what you built in the dark that now shines with intensity that attracts and repels with equal force. You're the phoenix, the storm, the quantum superposition of savior and nightmare, the mirror that shows people who they really are, the test they pass or fail, the catalyst they needed, or the threat they created by their own inadequacy. And you're at peace with all of it because you know your purpose. You've accepted your power. You've integrated your shadow and your light. You've become whole in ways that make you impossible to break again. So let them wonder. Let them analyze. Let them lose sleep trying to figure you out. Let them oscillate between wanting you close and wanting you gone. Let them drive themselves into madness trying to categorize what can't be categorized. You're too busy building to manage their confusion, too focused on ascension to care about their categorization, too committed to purpose to be distracted by their psychological warfare against themselves. You're not their savior unless they're ready to be saved. You're not their nightmare unless they've made themselves vulnerable to.